When people think about small towns in the US, they usually think boring, forgotten, or dying. But some towns don't need hype to work. Today, we're looking at hidden gems, small towns that quietly offer safety, jobs, affordability, and quality of life against all expectations. I'm Senior State, and these places deserve more respect. Dora, Iowa is the kind of town most people ignore without even realizing they're doing it. It's in Iowa, which for many Americans already disqualifies it from serious consideration. No coastline, no flashy skyline, no tech bros, no influencers telling you where to eat brunch. And that's exactly why Dora works. Dora sits in the northeast corner of Iowa, far from major metros, surrounded by rolling hills, rivers, and farmland that actually looks alive instead of industrial. On paper, it sounds like the definition of forgettable. In reality, it's one of the most quietly functional small towns in the Midwest. Let's start with the basics, because numbers matter more than vibes. Dora has a low crime rate, especially violent crime, and it stays that way year after year. This isn't a town riding a temporary trend or hiding problems behind tourism dollars. It's stable. People aren't constantly leaving. The population doesn't spike and crash. It just holds. And in 2025, stability is rare. The local economy doesn't depend on one desperate employer barely hanging on. It's diversified. Healthcare, education, manufacturing, agriculture, and small businesses all play a role. No single industry collapsing would wipe the town off the map. That already puts Dora ahead of hundreds of small towns across the country. A big reason for that is Luther College. This isn't just a college town where students show up, trash the place, and disappear. Luther College is deeply tied into the community. It brings in educated residents, cultural events, jobs, and a steady flow of people who actually contribute to the town instead of draining it. That alone raises the floor for education, civic involvement, and overall quality of life. And you feel it. Dora doesn't feel stagnant, it feels intentional. Downtown isn't abandoned. It's walkable, active, and locally owned. You don't see endless empty storefronts or pawn shops stacked next to vape stores. You see cafes, bookstores, breweries, and small shops that exist because people actually support them, not tourists, locals. Cost of living is another reason Dora quietly wins. Housing is still relatively affordable compared to national averages. No, it's not dirt cheap, but it's not inflated by speculation either. You're not competing with hedge funds, short-term rentals, or remote workers making coastal salaries and driving prices into the ground for everyone else. Prices reflect the local economy, not hype. And here's the part people don't expect. Dora is beautiful. Not in a loud Instagram way, not in a look-at-me way, but in a grounded, livable way. Trails, rivers, bluffs, parks, and actual seasons. This part of Iowa looks nothing like the flat stereotype people carry around in their heads. It's green, hilly, and surprisingly scenic. You can go hiking after work, you can kayak, you can be outside without fighting traffic or crowds, and you don't have to pretend you enjoy it just because it's trendy. Dora also punches above its weight culturally. For a town its size, it has music, events, festivals, and community gatherings that feel organic, not forced. People show up because they want to, not because there's nothing else to do. That's a subtle but important difference. Healthcare access is solid for a town this small. Schools perform well, infrastructure is maintained. This isn't a place coasting on nostalgia or slowly decaying while residents pretend everything is fine. It's maintained because people care enough to maintain it. Now let's be honest, Dora is not for everyone. If you need non-stop nightlife, luxury shopping, or constant stimulation, you'll be bored. If you equate success with population size or skyline height, you'll dismiss it immediately. And if you think quiet automatically means dying, you'll never get it. But for people who value safety, affordability, community, and a town that actually works the way it's supposed to, Dora quietly outperforms expectations. This is the kind of place people move to and then stop talking about online. Not because it's bad, but because it doesn't need defending. It doesn't need hype. It doesn't need a rebrand. It just functions. And that's the real surprise. In a country full of small towns collapsing under bad leadership, economic dependence, or simple neglect, Decorah stands out by doing something radical, staying balanced. No boom, no bust, no desperation. Just a town that figured out how to survive without losing itself. That's Decorah, Iowa. Not exciting, not famous, just quietly better than expected.
Marion, Ohio is a town most people write off without even checking the numbers. It's in Ohio, it's in the Rust Belt, and for many Americans, that's already enough to stop listening. Factories, decline, decay, and a town stuck in the past. That's the image people carry. But Marion doesn't fully fit that story, and that's what makes it interesting. Marion is not a comeback miracle, and it's not pretending to be one. It didn't rebrand itself with buzzwords or turn into a tourist fantasy. Instead, it did something far less dramatic and far more effective. It stabilized. For decades, Marion was shaped by manufacturing and railroads. When those industries shrank, the town took a hit, like hundreds of others across the Midwest. Some towns never recovered. They hollowed out, lost population, lost services, and never adjusted. Marion, slowly and imperfectly, did. Today, Marion's economy is more diversified than people expect. Manufacturing is still present, but it's not the only pillar. Healthcare, logistics, education, retail, and local services now carry real weight. That matters, because towns that rely on a single employer don't collapse suddenly, they collapse overnight. Marion didn't let that happen. Cost of living is one of Marion's strongest cards, and it's not subtle about it. Housing remains affordable, even by Midwest standards. You're not dealing with speculative bubbles or prices inflated by people who don't live there. What you pay generally reflects what people earn locally, which sounds basic, but in modern America, that's rare. And that affordability changes behavior. People can actually buy homes. People can stay. People don't have to leave just to survive. Crime is another area where Marion performs better than its reputation suggests. Is it crime-free? No, but it's not the lawless place outsiders assume it is. Like many small cities, crime is concentrated in specific areas, not spread evenly across the town. For residents who understand the layout, daily life is far calmer than the headlines imply. Downtown Marion tells a quiet story of adjustment. It's not booming, but it's not abandoned either. You'll find restored buildings, local businesses, and public spaces that show effort instead of neglect. This isn't a downtown waiting to be saved by some massive outside investment. It's one being maintained by people who still live there and still care. That matters more than hype. Marion also benefits from its location. It's close enough to larger cities like Columbus to access jobs, healthcare, and airports, but far enough away to avoid their costs and chaos. That balance is appealing to people who want space, affordability, and predictability without being completely isolated. Education and community institutions help anchor the town. Local schools, community colleges, and civic organizations play a stabilizing role. Marion isn't chasing trends, it's reinforcing basics, and basics are what keep towns alive when trends fade. There's also something else Marion has that doesn't show up neatly in statistics: continuity. This is a place where families stay for generations. That can sound negative, but it creates social cohesion. People know each other. Neighborhoods aren't constantly turning over. There's a sense of ownership that transient places don't develop. You see it in how people talk about the town, not with blind pride, but with realism. Marion residents know its flaws. They don't pretend everything is perfect, but they also don't abandon it at the first opportunity. And that's important, because towns don't collapse just because industries leave. They collapse when residents stop believing the town is worth maintaining. Marion hasn't crossed that line. Now, let's be clear. Marion is not trendy. It's not exciting. It's not trying to impress anyone. If you want nightlife, constant entertainment, or a fast-moving social scene, this is not the place. If you need external validation from where you live, Marion won't give it to you. But if you care about affordability, manageable living, and a town that quietly adjusted instead of giving up, Marion deserves a second look. In an era where many small towns are either collapsing or desperately pretending they're something they're not, Marion chose a third option: adapt just enough to survive without losing its identity. No miracle, no reinvention fantasy, just a town that learned to live within reality. And in today's America, that's not failure, that's success. That's Marion, Ohio. Overlooked, misjudged, and more functional than people expect. I'm Senior State. Los Alamos, New Mexico is not a place most people casually consider living. It sounds remote. It sounds isolated. And for many, New Mexico alone triggers assumptions about poverty, crime, and lack of opportunity. Los Alamos quietly breaks all of those assumptions. This town exists for one reason, and that reason shaped everything that followed. Los Alamos was built around science, research, and national security. From the very beginning, it attracted highly educated people with specialized skills, and unlike many single-purpose towns, it never collapsed when the original mission ended, because the mission never did. Today, Los Alamos National Laboratory remains the backbone of the local economy, and that changes everything. Median household income here is significantly higher than state and national averages. Education levels are among the highest you'll find in any small town in America. This isn't a place running on low-wage service jobs or seasonal tourism. It's a place where stable, long-term, high-skill employment is normal. And stability compounds. Crime in Los Alamos is extremely low, especially violent crime. Not because of aggressive policing or flashy programs, but because economic stress, the root of most crime, is largely absent. People are employed, people are invested, people plan to stay. That alone puts Los Alamos in a different category than most small towns in the Southwest. What surprises people even more is how functional daily life is. Schools consistently rank among the best in New Mexico. Public services are well-funded, infrastructure is maintained. Roads, utilities, and community facilities don't feel neglected or temporary. This is what happens when a town has money and actually reinvests it locally. Housing is where Los Alamos becomes complicated. It's not cheap. Inventory is limited, and prices reflect demand from a high-income population. But this isn't artificial inflation driven by speculation or hype. It's the result of real jobs supporting real incomes. People who live here can generally afford to live here, and that distinction matters. Los Alamos also defies expectations visually. Surrounded by mesas, forests, and high desert landscapes, it feels more like a mountain town than a desert settlement. There's access to hiking, trails, outdoor recreation, and quiet that doesn't feel empty. This isn't sprawl, it's controlled, intentional development, shaped by geography and history. And then there's the culture. Los Alamos doesn't behave like a traditional small town. Conversations are different, priorities are different. The population skews analytical, educated, and globally connected. People here think in systems, data, and long timelines. That influences how the town plans, votes, and responds to change. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's competent. Healthcare access is strong for a town of this size, with proximity to regional medical centers and internal resources tied to the lab. Community programs focus on education, science, and long-term development, rather than short-term fixes. Now, let's be honest, Los Alamos is not for everyone. If you want nightlife, spontaneity, or a constantly changing social scene, you'll feel limited. If you thrive on anonymity or chaos, this place may feel too controlled, too structured, too intentional. And yes, it can feel isolated. You are not stumbling into a major metro whenever you want. That's the trade-off. But for people who value safety, intellectual environment, stability, and predictability, Los Alamos quietly outperforms expectations. This is a town where planning actually works, where public money tends to go where it's supposed to, where leadership thinks in decades, not election cycles. That mindset doesn't guarantee perfection, but it does prevent collapse. And that's the real story. Los Alamos doesn't fit the narrative people have about New Mexico. It doesn't fit the narrative people have about small towns, and it doesn't try to. It simply exists as an outlier, a place where education, income, safety, and long-term thinking intersect in a way that's rare in modern America. Not trendy, not affordable for everyone, not exciting in the traditional sense, but remarkably functional. That's Los Alamos, New Mexico, a town built on brains, not buzz, quietly successful, and completely underestimated. I'm Senior State.
Fayetteville, Arkansas is a place most people never see coming. Mention Arkansas and expectations immediately drop. People picture rural poverty, limited opportunity, and a state the rest of the country forgot about. Fayetteville quietly dismantles that stereotype. This city sits in the northwest corner of Arkansas, and geography matters here. Fayetteville is part of a larger regional ecosystem that includes Bentonville, Rogers, and Springdale, an area that functions more like a modern metro than a small southern town. That regional structure gives Fayetteville something rare: scale without chaos. The local economy is stronger than people expect, and it's not an accident. Major employers, corporate headquarters, healthcare systems, education, and logistics all feed into the region. The University of Arkansas plays a central role, but it's not the only pillar holding up the city. That diversification protects Fayetteville from sudden economic collapse. Income levels in the area are rising, job growth is real, and unlike many fast-growing places, Fayetteville didn't explode overnight. It grew steadily, which allowed infrastructure, housing, and services to keep up. That balance shows. Crime in Fayetteville is relatively moderate for a city its size and trends lower than many comparable college towns. Neighborhoods are functional, public spaces are used. This isn't a place where residents retreat indoors because the city feels unstable. Cost of living is where Fayetteville really surprises people. Compared to cities offering similar job opportunities, outdoor access, and quality of life, Fayetteville is still affordable. Housing prices have risen, but they haven't disconnected completely from local wages. You're not paying a premium just for reputation or hype. You're paying for actual demand from people who live and work here. And yes, Fayetteville is beautiful. Surrounded by the Ozark Mountains, the area offers trails, lakes, cycling paths, and green space that many larger cities would kill to have. Outdoor recreation isn't a weekend escape, it's built into daily life. You can work, exercise, and unplug without leaving the region or sitting in traffic for hours. Culturally, Fayetteville punches far above its weight. There's music, arts, food, and a downtown that actually feels alive. Not artificially curated, not dependent on tourists. It works because people live there and participate in it. That's the difference between a place that looks good and a place that functions. The university adds energy, but it doesn't dominate the entire city. Fayetteville isn't trapped in the cycle of empty summers and chaotic semesters. It's a real city with students, families, professionals, and long-term residents all sharing space. Healthcare access is solid, schools perform well, infrastructure is modern and expanding. Fayetteville invests in itself instead of waiting to be rescued. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Fayetteville is in Arkansas, and for some people, that's a deal breaker. Cultural assumptions, politics, and stereotypes stop the conversation before it starts. But those assumptions ignore what's actually happening on the ground. People are moving here. Businesses are expanding. The city is growing on purpose. Fayetteville isn't trying to be Austin. It's not pretending to be Denver. It's becoming something more sustainable. And that's why it works. This is the kind of place people move to for opportunity and then stay for quality of life. It doesn't need national validation to succeed. It already does. Is it perfect? No. Growth brings pressure. Housing will get tighter, traffic will increase. Change always comes with trade-offs, but Fayetteville is still ahead of the curve because it grew with intention instead of desperation. That's the real advantage. In a country full of towns chasing attention, Fayetteville focused on fundamentals: jobs, livability, community, space to breathe. And it shows. That's Fayetteville, Arkansas. Unexpected, underrated, and far more capable than its reputation suggests. I'm SR State.
So there you have it, 5 small towns quietly outperforming expectations: Decorah, Marion, Los Alamos, Harrisonburg, and Fayetteville. Not trendy, not glamorous, not on anyone's radar, but safe, functional, affordable, and surprisingly well run. These towns prove something simple. In the US, the best places to live aren't always the ones making headlines. While everyone chases hype, some towns just quietly work. Remember their names, check the numbers, and maybe, just maybe, consider giving them a second look. I'm Steve Stave.